told them that I had killed the previous 9 people, but they didn't believe me. Because I am blind. That's right. How could a blind person kill so many young and strong adults? Moreover, the methods were so cruel, and importantly, so meticulous, leaving no trace behind. Recently, the news about the serial killer has been particularly popular, making the entire New York City panic-stricken. As soon as it got dark, there were almost no people on the road. But what was the difference between day and night for a blind person? The 9 people who have been killed are 4.5 couples, which means that my plan is to kill 5 couples. Currently, there is 1 man alive, but he has been missing. The police used all means to find this man, but 10 hours after his disappearance, there was no news. The most ridiculous thing is that this matter was widely rendered by well-wishers on the internet, and its popularity remained high. Some people, in order to become famous, even pretended to be criminals behind the keyboard, which caused great interference to the police. At first, they paid special attention to it, but when there were more such people, they stopped being fooled. So when I went to surrender, their jaws dropped in shock. A policeman shouted at me, "This is a murderer, a super perverted and cruel murderer. What good is it for you to rush to admit it? Can you get a free death?" Even though I couldn't see, I felt his anger. I tried to raise my hand to comfort him. "Brother, don't worry. I really killed the people. I came here this time to sincerely surrender. You can interrogate me. I can tell you all the methods of the crime." He was about to collapse and he shouted at me, a few times ordering someone useless. "The others will come with me to arrest people. If we can't catch anyone today, we'll all get out of here tomorrow. I'm here." But they all ignored me. I'm really helpless. After a while, a useless person came to me. She introduced herself. "My name is Emily, an intern police officer. If you have anything to say, you can tell me." She held my hand. "This way, please. I'd praise to have a nice voice." She smiled and said, "Doesn't sound like a cop, does it? Actually, I'm very good at investigating cases, but they don't want to take me because I'm a girl. So I've become the most useless person in the police station, doing chores for them every day." Soon she took me to the interrogation room. Everything, according to the process. She first consulted my basic information. I introduced myself. "My name is Jack, 28 years old, this year. Because I can't see, I can't work, I have no income, and I live on subsistence allowances." She jokingly said, "So your motive for killing is revenge on society?" Obviously, she also came to deal with me with a perfunctory attitude. As she wrote the transcript, she muttered to herself, "Why did the murderer kill these 5 couples? So far, we haven't found anything in common between them. You said that the murderer killed people randomly, but it seems that he carefully selected the victims. Mr. and Mrs. Jones were not in New York City some time ago. They came back not long ago, and they died and disappeared, one after another." I happily enlightened her. "It's not random killing. My goal is clear. As early as half a year ago, I figured out their family backgrounds." "But why them?" She seemed to be asking me, but in essence, she was still thinking to herself. I accurately touched her thoughts. She wanted to investigate the case, but her ability was not recognized by others. She could only investigate it in private, and I wanted to surrender, but no one wanted to believe that I was the murderer. So the 2 of us sat down together. Suddenly, as if she had thought of something, she said excitedly, killing with a plan and a target. That is revenge. But we have repeatedly investigated, and there is no common enemy between them. Then the only possibility is that the previous generation or the next generation has a common enemy, so the murderer retaliated against them. Boom, boom, boom. Emily's fingers tapped randomly on the table. The sound was actually very slight, but because I had been blind for many years, my hearing was particularly sensitive. She thought for a moment and said, "They are not locals. Their previous generation may not know each other. How could they have a common enemy?" I reminded, that is the next generation. The next generation. She let out and said, "Yes, they all have a 10-year-old son." Son. She suddenly became excited. I don't know what information she was looking through. She exclaimed, "Their sons all go to elementary school in Manhattan. How is that possible?" She was extremely disbelieving. What grudges could these children have against you? Besides, if they really had grudges against you, wouldn't it be easier to deal with these children than to deal with their parents? Why bother making things difficult for yourself? Hipona laughed dryly. Because they are the future of the country, the successors that all our people care for. What's more, we are just children. Their mistakes should be borne by their parents, but if legal means are taken, none of them will be punished. So I can only do it myself. What did they do to you? Emily guessed. Did they blind you? No, they don't have that ability. I explained my eyes were injured in a car accident. During the treatment, there were complications. In order to save my life, the doctor had to remove both of my eyeballs. I heard Emily sigh softly. She seemed to be sympathetic to me. So Emily seemed very interested in my story and asked, "What exactly did those children do to offend you and make you want to treat their parents like this?" I can tell you, but please don't interrupt me while I'm telling you. I'm afraid that once I get interrupted, I won't be able to continue. Okay. I was just about to start talking when Emily got up and said, "Wait a minute. According to normal procedures, there can't be only one police officer present during the interrogation. Due to special reasons, now only I will take notes for you. At the same time, considering your eye problems, in order to protect your legitimate rights and interests, I will now play you the audio and video recording of our conversation just now, so that you know that our interrogation is being filmed throughout the entire process, and you are responsible for every word you say. Assuming you want to overturn your own testimony in the future, then you will be punished by the law." She asked emphatically, "Do you understand?" I nodded. She reminded me, answer understand or don't understand. I nodded heavily, again, and replied, word by word, "I understand." Then I listened to the entire process of our conversation just now, making sure that our conversation was all recorded. Okay, you can start your statement. I sighed slightly and was silent for a while before saying, "Those 5 children took away the last and only ray of light in my life." Emily kept our agreement and didn't interrupt me. I began to recount painfully. "They killed my Lisa, and they were very cruel. Lisa is a poor child. That year, that fall, I heard her crying on a rainy day. I fumbled in the dark and walked to her side. She was hit by a car. Her left leg was severely fractured. I took her to the hospital. I thought her family would come to find her soon, but she had no parents. I thought her family would come to find her soon, but she had no parents. After several twists and turns, I found some clues. I heard that Lisa's mother was a homeless man. Later, I don't know how she got pregnant. Lisa's father never showed up. Lisa's mother could only bear all this by herself. She gave birth to Lisa and supported her by rummaging through garbage. Originally, the mother and daughter could barely survive. But once, Lisa's mother was kicked a few times by a drunk man while rummaging through garbage. She left behind a patient. Because she had no money for treatment, her condition became worse and worse, and she finally died one winter. Since then, Lisa has been wandering alone, until she met me. After her injury healed, she insisted on following me. Wherever I went, she followed. She kept babbling at me, as if to say she could be my eyes. Oh, I forgot to mention, she's in mute. She can't speak. Just like that, I took her home. She's really well behaved and capable. I gave her a place to shelter from the wind and rain, but she gave me the most warmth in my life. In spring, she took me for a walk in the park, listening to the sounds of retired old men practicing Tai Chi in the morning and old ladies dancing in the square at night. In summer, we sit under the trees to enjoy the cool air and eat ham sausage together. In autumn, she always picks up some fallen leaves and comes back. She likes these little things. She can't speak. Otherwise, she must be a talented poet. In winter, we bake fire around the stove together and eat roasted sweet potatoes together. I can't see her face, and she can't tell me what's on her mind, but our hearts are connected. We depended on each other for life, and became each other's brightest light. I thought we could support each other like this until death, but it turns out that happy times are so short-lived. 8 months ago, I clearly felt Lisa's abnormality. Her babbling voice became low, and from time to time, I could still hear her painful wailing. But this silly child, she was afraid that I would worry, so she didn't dare to tell me. Just sat obediently beside me until my hand touched her face. Lisa is a very beautiful girl, although I have never seen her face. But I often touch her facial features, and then imagine her appearance in my mind. But that time, I felt the injury on her face. I asked her heartbrokenly who did it, but she couldn't speak. From then on, I would not allow Lisa to go out alone. No matter what, I would let her take me with her. But I am, after all, just a blind man. There is a small road next to the Manhattan Elementary School, secluded and quiet, where few people pass by. Because there are no street lights there at night, it's pitch black. But for me, there is no difference. We often walk from there. That afternoon, I heard children whistling. They seemed to be teasing Lisa. Lisa screamed in fright and quickly hid behind me. I could clearly feel the put-her body trembling beside me. I asked sharply, "Who are you?" "Don't bully Lisa." The group of children laughed at me, blind man. They picked up stones and hit me and Lisa. Lisa screamed at them with all her might, but they were not afraid. They hit me with things one by one, but I couldn't see anything. Lisa was even more afraid of them. She hid behind me and let out a desperate wail in a hoarse voice. I threatened the children, "Don't bully Lisa, or we will tell your teacher, tell your parents." But they are not afraid. Go, blind man. The threat didn't work, so I tried to persuade them. "Why are you bullying Lisa? Didn't your teacher teach you not to bully the weak?" But they're crazy. in front of me. I just want to bully you. What can you do to me? Dinel, all sad. We are already so miserable. Why do these ignorant children still bully us? I found their school, but I couldn't even get past the school gate. The guard said to me, "What are you doing at the school for something that happened off campus? You should go to their parents." Nowadays, teachers who dares to take care of children. Parents nowadays are very good at making trouble. If there is any trouble with their children in school, they can turn the school upside down. What our school can do is to ensure that these children are in school. There is no safety accident, otherwise no one can bear the responsibility. I don't understand. I really don't understand. Isn't it the teacher's responsibility to teach and educate people? Teaching is, of course, the responsibility of the teacher, but educating people, the guard sighed heavily. Hey, the times are different now. When we were studying, respecting teachers was an iron law. We didn't dare to disrespect teachers, even if we were disrespectful to our parents. But now, children are precious, and the attitude of parents is, we are reluctant to beat and scold our children who allowed you to reprimand and teach them. Oh, the guard happened to be fine, so he pulled me aside and said a lot. He said the other day, "Teacher Johnson," because the student didn't do his homework. He said a few words to the child. The next day, after the child got on the school bus to school, he jumped out of the car and ran away. So many policemen searched for more than 10 hours, only to find him in a black internet cafe. His parents stabbed the matter to the media, causing Teacher Johnson to lose his job, let alone kneel down and apologize to the child in public. There is another parent of a child. During the summer vacation, they begged teacher Stephen to tutor their children. Seeing that their family background is average, and it is not easy to raise a child teacher, Stephen agreed. But in order to save a little bit of tutoring fees, the two actually reported teacher Stephen to the Education Bureau. Fortunately, they didn't accept the money, otherwise their jobs would not be guaranteed. The key is that teacher Stephen said at the beginning that he would not accept the money. The most bizarre. One green, a 6th grade teacher, a gentle and elegant male teacher. Just because a female classmate had a stomachache in class, he carried the child to the infirmary on his back and was actually accused of molesting female students. "He's such a big man," cried Heart to Heart on the playground, asking everyone he met, "Did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong?" It really made people's hearts tremble. Naturally, this is not the worst. We have a teacher who has already gone in. "Gone in?" I asked, in astonishment. "Where did you go?" "In jail." "Why?" The guard lowered his voice and said a few children bullied another child. The teacher saw it and persuaded them to stop, but they refused to listen. In order to save the child, he slapped one of the violent children. It's amazing now. Adults hitting minors is against the law. The parents said that they would not accept any apology or compensation. They just wanted to teach the teacher a lesson. They hired a powerful lawyer and sent the teacher to prison. You said, with so many things happening, which teacher would dare to meddle in other people's business? The guard sighed. Why do people advocate Buddhist teaching now? It is the duty of teachers to teach well, and if there is a slight mistake, they will lose their jobs at worst. Those who are serious will end up in jail who would dare to care about these young masters and misses. So just admit defeat. The guard shook his hand in front of my eyes. You are disabled, but they are minors. It is illegal for you to kill them, and they will kill you. It's nothing. You should hide. Why bother against these little devils? Yes. Give up. I took Lisa home. I told her that we would never go there again. I thought this would be the end of it. It turned out that it was not possible. That day, I had a dream during my nap. I dreamed that my Lisa was being bullied by them. I dreamed that my Lisa was being bullied by them. They pounded her down, burned her with lit cigarettes, scratched her with a knife, and poured gasoline on Lisa. No matter how Lisa screamed and struggled, they remained indifferent. They even laughed out loud when they saw Lisa struggling. Finally, they set Lisa's body on fire with a lighter. Lisa instantly turned into a ball of fire. She ran around in pain. She longed for someone to save her, but no one saved her in the end. My Lisa was burned alive, just like that. Speaking of emotion, I seem to be tearing up. I don't even have eyeballs, but I shed tears. The salty tears welled up from the two black holes and moistened my face. Emily couldn't listen anymore. She handed me a tissue, but she didn't speak. Later, I woke up. I'm glad it was just a dream. But since then, I have never seen Lisa again. Lisa never came back. I searched the world for her. I called her name over and over and over again. Lisa, Lisa. But there was no babble to answer me. Later, I found her in the sewer pipe, not far from where she was taken away on the evening of the exchange. Her body was covered in cigarette burns, a total of 218. I reported the case, but the police didn't find any useful clues at the scene. Lisa is a homeless child. She has no friends, let alone enemies. No one would harm her, except for the group of children. I went to the school to find them, but the school refused to provide me with the children's information because I had no evidence. Without evidence, a blind man could do nothing. But I will never forget the voices of those children. I can't hear their voices wrong. They are my only clue. They all have one thing in common. That is, they all go to elementary school in Manhattan. Every morning at 7:30, I would stand at the school gate, listening to the voices of children entering the school one after another. It took me a month to identify those 5 children. When I locked them one by one, I started my revenge plan. I will let them experience the pain Lisa has endured 100-fold. Their parents are responsible for their mistakes. The first one, Mike, 38 years old, the husband of Mary. He died at 2:13 p.m. On XX, he was found dead in the toilet of the company, with 218 cigarette but burns all over his body. The second one, Mary, 34 years old, Mike's wife. She died at 6 a.m. on XXX. Her body was found in a trash can in the park. All her teeth were knocked out. The third, Peter. The fourth, Anna. I recounted the victims' personal information and their state of death when they were victimized like a few treasures. I could clearly feel Emily's shortness of breath due to panic. Every time I said an important piece of information, I felt her hand was using extra force, and she couldn't record it seriously at all. I returned everything those kids did to Lisa to them. I heard Emily crumple the paper into a ball, and after a while, she finally couldn't hold back. She picked up the phone, quickly dialed a number, but unfortunately, no one answered. She didn't give up and dialed again. This time it got through, and she cried out urgently, "Mark." But the person on the other end of the phone shouted at her, "Emily, it's me. Captain Mark is angry. Stop calling. I have important information." The blind man But the person on the other side didn't give her a chance to speak. Captain Mark seems to have found a clue. I can't tell you more. The phone was hung up mercilessly. Emily was very annoyed, and the phone slammed on the table with a bang. Logically, she must not be allowed to make phone calls during interrogation. But at the beginning, they thought that I could not be the murderess, so they were perfunctory to me, and all the procedures were not in accordance with the rules. I could feel her clenching her fists, trying hard to control her emotions. Why do you have to report to this, Captain Mark? I asked curiously, are there no higher-level leaders in your police station? Emily was silent again. After a while, she said, because Captain Mark has been in charge of this case, but he has investigated for so long and found nothing. He firmly believes that there is no such thing as a perfect crime in the world. As long as a person commits a crime, it will definitely leave clues. He believes in himself, just as he believes that the light of the right path will eventually shine on every inch of the land. Her voice suddenly changed, completely devoid of the sonorousness of a policewoman, but more like a gentle girl. She asked almost pleadingly, "It's not you, right? If it were you, if the murderer was a blind man, how much would it hurt Captain Mark? He lost, and the truth he has always upheld was broken by a blind man who, in his eyes, had no conditions to commit a crime." She asked me, "You're a man. You should understand a man's mind. He'll collapse, right? Lisa is your light, but his truth is his light. Someone took away your light, and you became a murderer. Then, what will happen to him now that someone has shattered his light?" Big brother, I don't know this person. However, just listening to the voice, listening to his tone of voice, I know that this Captain Mark must be a very righteous person. He must believe that his duty as a policeman is to maintain social stability and protect the safety of the people. If someone destroys this, but he can't find the real culprit for the victim, and can't give the victim's family the last bit of comfort, he will definitely collapse. Probably, I replied casually. Out of curiosity, I couldn't help asking one more question. Do you like him? Is that why you care so much about his feelings? Emily seemed to have hit the nail on the head. Her heartbeat quickened. However, she quickly regained her composure. She said, "Everything you just said, except for the murderer, the police officers involved in the investigation of the case, and the forensic doctors who performed the autopsy. No. Although we have repeatedly asked that the information should not be leaked, no one can guarantee that no one inside will gossip. These alone are not enough to prove that you are the murderer." Nowadays, solving cases requires evidence. Without a sufficient chain of evidence, it is difficult to convict even if you surrender yourself. You have a motive, you know the crime scene, time, murder, weapon, etc., but you don't have the ability to commit the crime. How can you make me believe that you, a blind man, can kill so many people without anyone noticing? I let out a long sigh. I just lost my eyes, not my intelligence. As long as a person has the heart to kill, he will always find a way to commit a crime. Okay, then tell me, how did you find the victim? How did you confirm that the person was the one you wanted to kill? She joked, "Why, before killing someone, do you check their ID like a nurse giving an injection?" Sure. Sure enough, she knew nothing about the world of the blind. I told her I heard that a long, long time ago, humans had no eyesight, and everyone lived in darkness, but they were still able to create civilization. This is a gift of life to all creatures in the world. For example, some animals have no words, but they can communicate information through tentacles. God took away my eyes, but in my daily life in darkness, my hearing, smell, and touch far surpass that of normal people. The sound will change, the smell will change, and the touch. You don't expect the victim to wait foolishly for you to touch before you commit the murder, do you? I asked, why do I have to confirm it to myself? Won't the people around him confirm it? I just need to listen. You would say seeing is believing, but to satisfy at the same time, the information from others is wrong. The victim's voice happens to have changed, and the smell on his body has also changed. This probability is very low. Besides, why should I confirm my identity before killing? Can't it be during the fight? Again, why should I confirm my identity? What happens even if I kill the wrong person? There are so many people who abuse dogs and animals in this world. Since they are all human beings, what happens if they die for others? I became emotional. Emily thought for a while, but this doesn't fit with what you said before. Because they are the future of the country, their mistakes should be borne by their parents. Assuming you want to kill indiscriminately, why bother? Then she went step by step, attacking her heart. You have an accomplice. I don't, I retorted vehemently. Then tell me, how did you find the victim in the dark? How to ensure that there will be no witnesses during the crime? And how did you do it without leaving any criminal evidence? You have no eyes. How did you do this everything? I thought about it. I thought about it very seriously. Afterward, I took a deep breath, because I know right now there are two policemen passing by a wall away from us. The one on the left is thinner, and the one on the right is wearing handcuffs. They were just discussing a stupid thief who got his head stuck in the railing while stealing and couldn't get out, so he had to call the police for help. Emily opened the door quickly, and I continued. They just turned the corner. Based on their pace, I guess this corridor is about 8 meters long. Turn left and left again into your bathroom. I heard the sound of water coming from the second cubicle. My ears twitched, and the sound of footsteps got closer and closer. A man in his 50s is about to walk up to you. Sure enough, soon an old man's voice greeted, "Miss, what are you busy with?" Emily smiled awkwardly and said, "Uncle Tony, don't call me that. Just call me Emily." The man seemed to glance inside, then shook his head. "Why did you go to that big Devil Marks group? He is young and energetic. He has made great achievements in these years. He is our hero policeman in New York City. Naturally, his heart is higher than the sky, and his eyes are higher than the top. If you want to get ahead here, I am afraid you will have to endure a lot of hardship. So to follow the victims." Emily laughed in agreement. "That's almost it, don't tire yourself out." The man lowered his voice and said, "People with this kind of physical defect are somewhat psychologically problematic. Don't waste too much time. Just a few perfunctory words will do." "Okay, Uncle Tony, you are busy." Emily closed the door again. She seemed to see the smile on the corner of my mouth, and quickly explained, "I don't think there is anything wrong with your psychology." Suddenly, she walked up to me. "One last question. How do you make sure you don't leave any evidence? You can't hear, smell, or even touch. She seemed to have found a breakthrough. How do you confirm? Seeing that I didn't answer, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. I wonder why anyone would rush to be a murderer. But no matter what your purpose is, we can find out. Why should I confirm whether I left any evidence? I didn't carry any evidence that could prove my identity from the beginning to the end. Fingerprints just wear gloves. Shoe prints just put on shoe covers. What else? Tools. I couldn't help laughing as I spoke. Didn't you find that the tools were all provided by the victims? The cigarettes belonged to the victim's family. The teeth were knocked out with fist after fist. Knives or ropes are all randomly sourced. Even the gasoline was carried by the victim. She asked in surprise. Gasoline? Yes. This is the way the 10th person died. His whole body was doused with gasoline. Waiting for someone to touch a certain switch, any spark would ignite his body, and then in front of everyone the fire would engulf him bit by bit, devour life. And the people who were looking for him could only watch him struggling in pain, listening to the echoes of his wailing echoing in their ears. Emily was stunned again. This time, she didn't say anything to me, but directly dialed the phone. It's a pity that the phone was never connected. Mark answered the phone. She called anxiously, but unfortunately, no one answered. I asked mockingly, my God, how broken will he be when he knows he missed 3 chances to solve the case? I asked curiously, what does it feel like to watch someone break down? Will it make people feel happy? The truth is right in front of him, but he missed the opportunity to catch the murderer because of his arrogance and stereotypes. His heart must be in great pain, right? The crime time was all at night, because in the dark you have enough advantages. The modus operandi is all the pain that Lisa has endured. You use the way other people abuse dogs to abuse people. They knew. She seemed to be looking me up and down. How did you fight those tall and strong men with your thin body? The 5th victim, William, works on a construction site and is very strong. His height is 185 cm. How did you knock him down and strangle him to death with your arms? I have to think about this. Suddenly it occurred to me, and I asked, do you know there is something called a lever? The labor-saving lever, the distance, the laborious lever, the distance, height, and weight are not necessarily advantages. Emily was speechless. I think her face must be very ugly at this time. Are you thinking this murderer is too smart? Without eyes, how did you find something useful at the scene to make a lever? I have to admit that this policewoman also has something in her head. At least, she is not a vegetarian. Suddenly, I stood up. Emily was startled and ordered, sit down. I just want to show you my height. She just needs to look at me, and she will accurately say a number 178 cm. Yes, this height has no advantage over William. But I just can kill it. I sat down again. I looked provocatively at the position in front of me. Officer Emily, in fact, you are not very competent. If I were you, from the moment I decided to come to the interrogation, I would immediately ask someone to investigate the other party's background. If I were you, even if I didn't believe that the person in front of me was the real culprit, I would rule out all the possibilities of his committing the crime as soon as possible. But you didn't investigate my past. You didn't ask me where I was when the incident happened, and most importantly, you brought me here and let me talk to you in front of the camera, but it didn't give me the treatment I deserved as a suspect. I held up my hands. I advise you to handcuff me. I kindly reminded her, at this moment, the person sitting in front of you is not a kind person. At least, he said he killed 9 people, and he knows where the 10th person is, but I don't plan to tell you. Emily is a woman after all, and just an intern police officer in the end. After hearing my words, she ran out immediately. I vaguely heard her ask, anxiously, which community is Jack from? What is his past? Jack. Such a familiar name. It was an all-around athlete named Jack back then. What a pity. When he was 18 years old, he and his family of 3 went out and had a car accident. Not to mention the death of his parents, he also lost his eyes. Back then, the name Jack resounded throughout the internet. Sure enough, some people still remember me. I remembered that there was a young man who was gifted and was selected by the provincial team at a young age. He was the treasure of the coaches and the myth that the students looked up to. Whether it's sprinting or high jump diving or swimming, he can easily win championships. Even he has high attainments in basketball and football. People say that he is the pride of the sports team and the future winner of the Olympic gold medal. He will definitely become a person who wins glory for the country. It's a pity that in the best time of his life, a car accident took everything from him. The proud son of heaven who was once in the limelight fell into the mud, curled up in the darkness like a stink bug, enduring all the suffering that fate had bestowed on him. But he never thought about suicide. Because when the accident happened, his parents used their bodies to block him, which prevented him from dying in the car accident. The mother kept muttering before she died, "Live, child. You must live." He lived strong. He knew that his life was no longer just his own, but also the expectation of his parents. His life was no longer just his own, but also the continuation of his parents. He just wanted to live with his guide dog day after day until the arrival of death. With such a simple request, someone wants to destroy it. Damn it. Damn it. They all deserve to die. I heard hurried footsteps. Emily ran back to the interrogation room. Quickly, she said. "Jack, you are suspected of murdering 9 innocent citizens. Now, I am arresting you according to the law." She approached me and tried to handcuff me. However, at that moment, I suddenly smelled a very familiar fragrance and I instinctively resisted. My hand has never left my guide stick, but no one knows that there is a hidden weapon on the guide stick. I pulled it out in time. It was a dagger. I stabbed straight at Emily. "It's you. I recognize you. It's you." I'm going crazy. At this moment, I didn't think about anything. I just wanted to kill Emily. There were many things I couldn't figure out, but at this moment, I understood everything. Unfortunately, someone came in. The man was too brave. He pushed Emily hard. The knife that was originally stabbed in Emily's body slashed on his arm, and I didn't get a chance to stab a second time. A bullet hit my forehead. I only felt a mysterious force, which immediately imprisoned me. My whole body seemed to be sealed. I fell heavily to the ground. I seemed to see the light. I saw my father and mother, and they came to pick me up. I also saw Lisa. She was smiling at me. She is really beautiful, and she will be a stunning beauty when she grows up. I want to tell her, "I see the light. You have to persevere and believe that the future world will be better." I want to tell her, "You don't have to think like me. We are already so miserable. Why does fate still bully us? This is a question that adults should think about. Hello everyone, I am Mark, the investigating officer of the blind murder case. First of all, I'm very sorry that I failed to find the real culprit in time and failed to protect the personal safety of the citizens. Secondly, I want to say, when I was being interviewed, I had memorized the manuscript by heart, but when I faced the camera, my mind went blank. There are too many meanings to express in this manuscript. We want to call on the public to pay attention to the disabled and give them more care and love. We want to tell everyone that animals are our good friends, and it is everyone's responsibility to protect animals. We also want to appeal to parents not to spoil their children too much, and not to let innocent and lovely children become their children. At the same time, we must raise the threshold for the teaching profession, use better teachers to educate better students, and give the right of punishment back to teachers. It was originally a manuscript with correct thinking and impassionedness, but I couldn't utter a single word, because I really can't believe that the murderer in such an earth-shattering case was actually a blind man. Even though during our relentless investigation, I discovered that the crimes were all committed at night and in places without lights. Even though on the day Jack surrendered, we found the 10th person in the sewer near Manhattan Elementary School and collected a shoe print at the scene, which was the same size as Jack's. But if it wasn't for Jack's surrender, I think I still wouldn't be able to relate the real culprit in this case to a blind man. That day, when I just found out that the perpetrator might be a blind man, the police officer I sent to investigate Jack's past happened to report to me that he was the sports genius who was envied by heaven back then. In an instant, I only felt my head buzzing. We rushed back to the police station quickly, and when we reached the door, we heard a gunshot. By the time I rushed to the interrogation room, Jack was already lying in a pool of blood, and one of our colleagues was also injured in the arm by Jack's dagger. Emily was squatting in front of him, checking his injuries. She raised her eyes and stared at me. Her eyes were full of tears. She asked me for help. "Captain Mark, what should I do? The knife is poisonous. It's paraquat." The knife was coated with paraquat and hidden in the guide stick. He couldn't live without why. I watched the conversation between Emily and Jack carefully several times. I really feel more and more broken every time. Emily called me 3 times. Once was when she learned of Jack's motive for the murder. Once was when Jack told where and when he killed the murder weapon, etc. The last time was when she confirmed that Jack had the ability to commit the crime and might know the whereabouts of the 10th person. But the first time I told her not to disturb me in handling the case. The second time I just threw the phone to other colleagues. The third time I didn't answer at all. I think every minute and every second, if I let go of my prejudice against Emily and answered her call, wouldn't the final tragedy happen? At least my colleagues won't be lying in the ICU. But as a policeman, I have no right to break down. Before closing the case, I have to go through everything again. Death only ends a person's life, and only a trial can end a case. Jack's last words before killing were strange. I went to Emily and asked, "Why did he say that? What does I recognize you mean? Did you know each other before?" Emily didn't even dare to look me in the eye when she heard my question. This is totally out of her character. She has always been indomitable in front of me. "I found Selchu's body after a while," she said in a deep voice. "I was still a small policeman at the time, and Jack asked me for help, but I thought it was just a dog, and advised him not to pursue it. Even if pursued, there will be no results. It's been so long. I didn't think about it at all. Until he drew his sword, I had some impression. As soon as she finished speaking, I felt my hair stand on end. If I hadn't tried my best to control myself, I was afraid that I would slap her in the face. I recalled her saying to Jack over and over in the video, "It's just a dog." I yelled at Emily, "Are you crazy? Do you have any empathy? Why did you say that? Why did you stimulate him like that? Don't you know that every time you say that's just a dog is like stabbing a knife in his heart? You witness the pain and sadness of a person losing a beloved pet. How could you cover it up with a light forget it?" Emily cried. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, which made me even more angry. I said, "You can't even judge the murderer's psychology. Why are you a policeman? What do you think a policeman does? Is it here to arrest bad guys? No, arresting bad guys has never been our goal. Our purpose is to protect the personal safety of every citizen. You are not cut out to be a cop, let alone a detective." I told her to write a resignation letter. A woman's tears are really a headache for a man. She sniffed, walked up to me, stared into my eyes, and said, "What right? What right do you have to say that to me? I'm not suitable to be a policeman. What about you? Are you suitable? I called you 3 times. If only once you can let go of stereotypes, and the tragedy will not happen. If you didn't think girls are not suitable to be policemen, you wouldn't treat me like this. If it wasn't for the fact that you didn't think blind people were capable of killing people, you wouldn't have treated Jack so perfunctorily. As long as you were willing to listen to him, we wouldn't be lying in the hospital now. Emily and I have known each other for 10 years. She is my high school alumni. At the age of first love, she once confessed to me, but I really don't like her type. Later, I got into the police academy. She followed suit. After graduation, I became a police officer and went straight to the criminal investigation team. She was still chasing after me relentlessly. She wasn't capable enough, so she started as a police officer and walked towards me, step by step. Everyone around said that such an excellent woman loved me so much, I shouldn't always keep her out of the door. But love is not love. She was so domineering in front of me. She questioned me and said, "Mark, you ask me why. Then let me ask you, why do you do this to me? Why do you treat me like this?" Yelling. "Why do you ignore my ability like this and let me sit on the bench? Why do you veto everything I say?" She said, "What you rely on is nothing more than my sincerity to you, my love for you, so you dare to be so unscrupulous." Ha ha ha. I almost burst out laughing in anger. Human life is at stake, but she's talking to me about if I just didn't like her before, then at this moment, I simply loathed her. Why? Let me tell you why. I pointed at her. Because the bottle of perfume sprayed on you is the annual salary of our people. Because you are wearing a police uniform, but stepping on your feet, it's brand name shoes. You earn 3 to 5,000 yen in salary, but you drive a car worth 3 to 5 million yen. You have love in your head, but you want to pollute our upright profession. Yes, Emily is the daughter of a billionaire. She doesn't even know what mission is. What is ideal? What is responsibility? I don't even know that people like us have dedicated our full enthusiasm to this country, put our life and death in the air, carry a suicide note with us, and we are afraid that one day if we die in the line of duty, we will not have a chance to explain the funeral. Maybe I was too harsh. Emily looked at me in horror, 2 lines of tears stringing down her face. In the end, she took off her police uniform, left the police station, and before leaving she came to me and whispered, "I made 1,000 mistakes. My love for you is not wrong. I hope that one day, when you calm down and recall the past, you can remember that there was a girl named Emily who followed in your footsteps for 10 years. When a man hates a woman, no matter how affectionate she speaks, she will not be able to recover even a single bit." From that day on, Emily left the police station completely, never came back. As for Jack's case, although we finally identified him as the murderer, but since he was dead, the case ended there. A long time later, when I read these materials, my heart still couldn't calm down. In Jack's last words, he said, "The future world will be better," but he'll never see it. He, in the dark, ended his life in his own way. As Emily said, he was a blind man seeking attention. He wanted the world to see him, his pain, his despair. He wanted the world to know that he too once had light. He too once had hope. However, in the end, he ended his own life and the lives of others in the most extreme way. I began to rethink, as a police officer, what exactly is our duty? Is it to catch criminals? Is it to protect the citizens? Or, as Emily said, we want to light a light in the hearts of everyone who has lost hope. Make them believe that the future will be better. I do not know. All I know is that on that day, I lost a woman who loved me, a soul I could have saved, and the beliefs I once held. Maybe one day I'll find the answer. Maybe never find it. But no matter what, I will move on. Because this is my mission. As I sat in my office reviewing all the evidence, I suddenly felt thirsty, so I picked up the glass of water on the table and took a sip. At that moment, I felt my body gradually lose consciousness. The glass fell from my hand, and water spilled all over the floor. My colleagues gathered around quickly, anxiously asking me what was wrong. In the chaos, I struggled to utter my last words. "The water is poisonous."